Look, today we made a very important announcement, and it comes directly from members of the Iranian Canadian community, people who are here that are vulnerable because they have a temporary status in Canada. I've been hearing from attending protests and rallies directly from Iranians who find themselves in Canada, often international students, people who are here visiting, or people who are here on a temporary work permit, that after they attended protests, they're hearing from those who are connected to the regime that they've seen them at the protests, that they should be careful not to do it again, and that they feel threatened as a result of the fact that they may be required to leave Canada and don't have anywhere to go. We've made a decision to have a special extension made available for those who have a temporary status in Canada who are Iranian nationals that will allow them to stay in Canada for up to an additional 2 years. In addition to having that measure made available for those who are here as students, as visitors, or as temporary workers, we're extending the ability to apply for an open work permit so people will be better able to support themselves. In addition to these measures to protect those who are already here, we want to make it very facilitative so it's easy for people to avail themselves of these special measures and our priority processing applications that we receive and waiving many of the fees that apply so cost is no longer a barrier. This will also include, by the way, priority processing and fee waivers for Canadian citizens or permanent residents who are in Iran that seek to come home. The reality is we want to continue to do what we can to stand with the people of Iran and stand up to the regime who is conducting themselves in an unconscionable way and continuing to suppress human rights. Canada is going to continue to stand with the Iranian people, and we hope that today's announcement to extend temporary status is a sign of good faith that is received well by those who are here with a temporary status and those people who are here in Canada that care about them.
How long the extension would be? It's going to be 6 months, or it's going to be up to 2 years, as you mentioned?
So it will be up to 2 years, but the individual circumstances may vary on a case-by-case basis depending on the unique situation of the individual who applies. The process will be made available on March 1st with full details as to who's eligible for what length of an extension. But for those who are concerned about the eligibility for different periods, our goal is to ensure that those who are going to face persecution should they be required to return home have the ability to remain in Canada. This is designed with the risks that people may face in mind, and we want to be as facilitative as possible to allow those who are here temporarily to stay until such time as they no longer face risks as a result of them attending a protest or standing with the Iranian people and standing up to the regime.
How about the moving from a temporary visa to the permanent ones? You mentioned the the type of work permit. Is there any other avenues available to them as well?
Well, keep in mind that when you extend status for up to 2 years and you grant an open work permit to an individual, the opportunities for people to apply for and receive permanent residency through ordinary channels will increase significantly. People who are here, who are working, who have experience in Canada, have a greater opportunity to apply for permanent residency through existing economic or family reunification channels. So in order to determine what steps may be required to come next, I believe that we'll need a little bit of time to understand whether people are able to use this temporary extension to give themselves the runway that will allow them to qualify for permanent residency. We are also looking to make changes to a very important program that we launched in Canada a few years ago, the first of its kind. And that's a program that allows permanent residency for people who are human rights defenders that are fleeing persecution as a result of them being targeted for standing up for the human rights of others. We're looking to make changes to the program to allow human rights defenders from Iran to potentially qualify for permanent residency in Canada, to communicate to the community that we're willing to stand up and provide protection to those who are facing persecution. But for those who are here now, my advice is to first consider applying for the extension and the open work permit. And should you wish to remain in Canada as a permanent resident, seek to apply through ordinary means, because you should, with several years in Canada, have a clearer opportunity to apply for permanent residency through existing channels.
Would you please give us an idea of how fast that priority of processing the applications would be?
So we'll go as fast as we can. The reality is it depends upon how many applications that we see that come in. Typically speaking, when we priority process, we can get through certain applications in a matter of weeks, but the precise timeline for an individual application who's eligible to apply will depend on which pressures are facing the system and how many applications we come through a priority processing stream. So I can't commit to a precise number of days at this stage because it relies on facts that are not yet known. But the idea of offering priority processing for people who apply for these extensions is to get them processed as quickly as possible. I would encourage those who are considering applying for an extension to do so at your earliest opportunity when the program opens on March 1st, because of course there are some people who have the expiry of their temporary status coming up very soon, and we would want to make sure that we extend their status before the existing status expires. And there may be others who may have status for an additional 1 or 2 or 3 years who may not feel they need to do it as urgently. Whatever your situation, if you're considering applying for the extension, I would encourage you to do it at the earliest opportunity.
Would there be any possible solution for the people who are Iranians who are coming to Canada and seek refugee status in Canada, as a faster or as a, let's say, with less documents, required?
So the circumstances vary on individual cases. We work closely with international organizations and with nonprofits who are expert in identifying some of the most vulnerable people in order to provide protection to them. There are certain challenges because when I have conversations with members of the community, I'm hearing that many Iranians who have already fled Iran find themselves currently in Turkey. For individuals who've been impacted by the recent earthquakes that have an application in the system, we're trying to expedite those applications already. But there are challenges for people who find themselves in Turkey who seek to make a refugee claim, because Turkey, like many other countries in the world, sometimes requires travel documents before a person is permitted to exit. These are challenges, again, that are outside of Canada's control, but we're going to continue to work with the international community and with our referral partners like the UNHCR and other organizations to identify some of the people who are most vulnerable, including vulnerable Iranians. We're going to continue to work to identify how we can further assist those who may be seeking refuge in Canada, but the circumstances are very challenging. The next phase beyond the announcement today to extend temporary status for individuals is to consider how we can bring those in who are being persecuted because of their defense of the human rights of others. And we're going to continue to work with some of our colleagues, including in particular, I should say, Patrick Weiler in British Columbia and Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, who have been staunch advocates for the Iranian Canadian community since the beginning of this crisis, and who continue to have regular discussions with me to better understand what we can do. I should mention as well my colleagues Ali Asasi, who's been an absolute champion for the Iranian community, and Majid Zahari have been in my ear constantly to ask me to do more and to move faster to continue to help those vulnerable Iranians who are seeking Canada's protection. And we're going to continue to work with our colleagues as well as the community more broadly to do whatever we can to help those who are in need of help.
Thank you so very much. My questions are over. So if you're willing to add some more comments, you're more than welcome.
Look, let me conclude by saying thank you. I've attended protests. I've joined at rallies in defense of the human rights of Iranians who are being targeted. Today's announcement to allow people to remain in Canada comes directly from feedback that we heard from the Iranian community in Canada. We have heard loud and clear that people who attend protests are receiving text messages on their phone the next day from people who are supportive of the regime saying, "We've seen you at this protest. You better not go again because you may not be safe." They've been asking me very clearly to say, "We want to remain in Canada because we don't have anywhere safe to go." Today's announcement reflects the feedback that we've taken directly from the Iranian Canadian community. I hope sincerely that this measure demonstrates the goodwill of Canada, and that the government of Canada is going to continue to stand with the Iranian people. Zendegi Azadi, we're going to continue to be there and continue to advance measures that are going to help people in their time of need.